Hello there friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joanne and I'm back again with yet another tutorial. Today I'm bringing you this tutorial. It's that of children's sweater. As usual, I like working on children's project. I guess it's because I'm a mama. And today's project is a sweater that is made out of granny squares. This is something I just tried. I was working on granny squares. If you watched my previous tutorial, I was teaching you how I make my granny squares. And when I made them, I figured I tried thinking of what I could make out of it. And well, this is what I eventually came up with. And it's quite simple. Once you have your granny squares, it's all about just being creative with them. Don't mind my color mixing and all that, so it's a bit complicated. I started my granny squares with the green yarn, and then I tried this was not enough. It was, I think I had 6 balls of that, so I was remaining with 2. It couldn't make all these remaining parts, so I tried ordering for the same color of yarn and I was told it wasn't available, so I just had to do whatever I had to do, and that is how we have this. So it's a very simple tutorial. I really hope that you'll enjoy it. If you like my tutorial, kindly subscribe, like, share, and support my work here. Thank you very much. I really hope that you'll enjoy the entire tutorial. Okay, last time I showed you a tutorial on how I was making my granny squares, and as you can see, I'm here trying to be a bit creative with the granny squares that I made. So I'm trying to just see how it will be with a toddler's sweater. I have no specific measurements honestly, but we'll just see how this goes. So as you can see, this is probably going to be the front or the back part, whichever way, and I'm just trying to use my granny squares. So for whichever part this is going to be, I've used my 9 granny squares, and then I've just tried to be a little bit creative in the color mixing here, so that I can come up with the neck and later on the shoulders, the sleeves, sorry. So I'm just going to put that aside. For this project, as you can see, I have my granny squares. Sorry, I've not finished the edges. I have my granny squares. I made 18 of them, and here with me are the remaining 9. Yeah, so I'm just going to show you how I joined them into this. Yeah. For the joining, I am using this yarn. It is called Knitting Essentials Aran. Yeah, it recommends the use of 5mm hook and 6mm hook. That is the UK size. But I made my granny squares using a size 2mm hook. I just loved the way it became a little bit, not so stiff, but it gave my granny squares a very good look. So I chose to go along with it. So I'll be using these for this part of color that you're seeing here in the joining. So it's not so hard joining these. I used the single crochet method to join my granny squares. So I'm just going to take these 2. All of them are on the right part facing me, like this is the right part and this is the wrong part. I don't know how people call that, but I choose to call mine that. So I'm just going to remember the point where I was doing my 2 double crochets, 2 chains, and 2 double crochets all into the same chain. Sorry guys, I told you this color is not actually the best color to use, because okay, I don't know if it's the color or is it the camera I'm using. It's not the best either, but anyway, we'll just go along with that. It's not that bad. Yeah. So if you want, you can use your stitch markers to mark the points where you'll be starting your joining. So for me, I choose like the second chain. There's the first chain and the second chain, so I choose to start from the second chain. If you want, you can always mark that. I'm good without it anyway. So I'll use the second chain here and also the second chain here and join my work going along. So I'll just grab my yarn. Sorry, I didn't cut it off from this end. I'll just weave in the ends later. So I'll take my yarn, I'll make a slip knot. I don't know how you people make slip knots. There are different ways to do that, so mine I'm going just to do like that. And then I'm going, like I told you, I'll be working from the second chain. Yeah, so I'll be leaving the first loop. I'll be working into the second loop. I don't know if you can see this quite well. Okay, so there's this first loop and there's the second one, so I'm just going to go into the second one like that, and then on this other part there's the first and the second. So from this part I'll be going into the first, like let's basically say I'm working on the inner loops. If these are the granny squares, I'm not working into the first on this side, on the first on this other end. I'm working into the stitches, or rather the loops. I don't know how to describe them, but the middle ones, the ones that are near each other, those are the ones I'm going to work with. And it's not hard, and I'm just going to, after inserting my hook, I'll just insert my crochet and pull through like that. Then it's going to be easier after this. I mean, after identifying the loops you're going to work with and the beginning point, it's going to be easy. I'll just insert my hook here and insert it into the other part. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through the two. Work through this part into the other part, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through two. Work into this, into the other part, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through two. So I'm just basically going to be working into those two parts of the loops and working a single crochet after that, making sure that you don't skip any part so that your work can be neat. Make sure you work into all the loops. Yeah. So guys, this is basically what I'm going to do until I finish this part and begin like joining into the other part of granny squares. There's nothing new about this, like it's just finishing sorry, I've worked into the two. It's just finishing this part, joining into the next pair of granny squares and going I'm almost done actually. I think I can as well just show you how I joined my work into the other pair of granny squares. No, this is not a new method of joining granny squares. Okay, so I'll finish also by working into the first chain, like there were the chain two spaces here in every corner, so I'll just work into the first chain and leave the second one. So as you can see, this is how it's looking within the first joining. Yeah, now I'm going to take another pair of granny squares. Sorry, my work looks a bit untidy and all over the place, so I'm just going to take the other pair. If you need stitch markers, you can always use them like I told you, but I'm not going to be using them. Remember, I started with the second chain when I was working in this part. I'll do the same here. So I'll identify my second chain. This is my first and this is going to be my second. And also from this part, this is my first and this is my second here. I don't know, this color is just, but I'm sure you can also just get it from how I'm explaining it. So I'm just going to work directly into that. Remember, we are working into the inner loops, not the first loops. So this is our chain 2 space. This is our first chain, this is the second. I'm just going to go into the second loop of the chain 2, sorry. Yes, I'm going to go into the second loop of the chain 2, and then of the second chain, and also into this other part. I'm identifying my second chain, which is this, and then I'm just going to go into the first loop for that part. I'll yarn over and then yarn over and pull through the two of them, and just like that we continue with what we were doing in the other part. So I'm just going to be working into this first loop here, this one here, yarning over and pulling through. So that's basically it, guys. I'll be joining these all the way until I finish it, and then I also remember we are dealing with 9 granny squares, and we are just going to be joining them. So this is how it is right now. Yeah, I'm coming to join this again. Once I'm at this point, like once I've joined this, I'll also come and join this here. Yeah, finish it up to this point, and then I'll come with these other pairs here and here, like these granny squares, and start again from this point going all the way up. Once I'm done with that, I'll come and start from this point, coming this way, this point coming this way, and I'll definitely come up with something that looks like this. Yeah, so guys, the concept is still the same. These points here is not hard. Once I finished working on the last stitches on this point, I slip stitched into the chain here, like in this part, and then came to this point and continued working my work. So guys, work on your projects. I'll come back and then I'll show you how I did this, and we'll proceed on working on our sweater from that point. So guys, I'm actually done with the joining of the granny squares, as you can see, and right now I'm just going to work on this part here. This is this part, and then I'll work on this, and we'll join our work. So I'm just going to explain to you how I'm going to do this part. Basically, the joining of this part and this part here, I'm just going to do it the same exact way that I did here. Yeah, so depending on what length you would want, or what space you'd want to leave here for your sleeves, I'll say that will vary with you, but I'll leave some space. Yeah, because I told you I don't have any specific measurements for working this project. So depending on how big your sleeves are, small, how you'd want them to be, I'll just leave out some space there. So that said, I'm just going to take my yarn, this one, and then I'm going to start at this particular point, working my row of double crochets. So I'll just start from this point, and I'll be working into both the loops. That is every stitch anyway, so I'll just yarn over and pull through, sorry, like that, and then I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, like that, and I'll work double crochets all the way into every stitch. So I'll just be, the basic way of doing double crochets. It may be a bit slow because I'm using the crochet size that is not recommended. This recommends a size 5, but since my entire project has been worked using this crochet hook size, I'll just have to work it all the way using the same crochet hook. So that's basically it. I'm going to continue working my double crochets until the end of this row. I'll chain 1, turn my work, come back, chain 1, turn my work until I have these 3 rows of the double crochets. Okay, now guys, I'm back. I know I've gone for quite so long, so I actually progressed a lot with the project I was working on. As you can see, I've joined the work both sides. This side, I've also joined this part here, and I've added one of the sleeves. So I must agree that you didn't miss much of it, because I still have a sleeve to work on this side, so that's going to compensate for this. And as always, each ribbing I do is the same for either the sleeve, the neck, or the waist ribbing. So guys, probably just to explain what I did, last I left you I was working on this yellow part, like I was doing this extension. So the same way I showed you how to start this extension is the same way I did these 3 rows of, not 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is the same way I did these rows of double crochet here. I just started my work here, came up to this point, went back and forth until I finished that. And then remember, the same way I started here, it was supposed to be a continuation all this way. So for this part, I started working from this point here, went and also did the same thing until I achieved that. And for the joining part, I had already explained that to you. The way I joined all my granny squares is the same way I did all the joining for my entire project, and that's how I basically came up with this kind of work. So guys, I'm here today to show you how I worked my ribbing, and I'll demonstrate that by working on my neck ribbing, and then I'll basically show you how I started my my sleeve here, because I'll just show you how I worked my sleeve, because once I show you how I do my neckline ribbing, you'll also have an idea of how I worked my hand ribbing or wrist ribbing, and also my waistline ribbing. There's nothing difficult or different from what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to take you through the neck, how I'm going to work this part. So one challenging part about this project today, it's normally easy when you already have your stitches aligned, yeah, like they're so evident at this point, you can clearly see your stitches. But for this part here, you can see that this is the point where the rows were ending and turning, so you don't have marked or defined stitches. So I've never had a project that is like this, but just out of like how I'm thinking this should be done, I'm just going to take one of the joining points, like this point here, and then I'm going to work a row of single crochets. So I'm just going to make a slip knot like I always do. I'm still using my the crochet hook I started this project with. I'm just going to work my slip stitch there, then I'm going to go with my hook as usual into that point, and then I'm going to pull through the slip stitch, and then I'm going to work one chain like that. Then I'm just going to make my way out to these edges to come up with single crochets. So I'm just going to see, that's up to you actually, how to come up with points of working your hook into. So I'll not tell you you'll work into any specific point, because honestly I'm also not quite sure. I'm just working my, I feel that this is even quite so low, so I'm so little. I'm just going to add one more single crochet there. Like I told you, I have no clear definition of how to make that to make anything out of that. And then once you get to these points, you have your stitches very clear, like these yellow parts. Don't worry, I'm working with this end because I'm trying to avoid coming to weave in later, so I'm just working along with it until it disappears. So into this point, I'm just working my normal single crochets, and as you can see, I've finished weaving in that end. And so guys, there's nothing much I'm going to do here. I'm just going to work my round of single crochets. Once I get to this point, I'll also figure out how to work my single crochets here, this point, come back until this point, and then I'll be back to show you how I now did my ribbing. Okay, so I've actually finished working my row of single crochet. So we are just going to join our work using a slip stitch like we always join any other row. Now from this point we are now going to start our neckline ribbing. It's just going to come out exactly as this is, and I'm going to start by chaining 15. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 and 15. Okay, so once you finish the first few rows, it's going to be very simple, as this is basically a repetitive process. So once I've gotten to 15, I'm just going to chain 1, which is not going to be part of our main stitch or chain, sorry. So I'm going to leave out that one chain, like I'm going to look at the 15, and then I'll now turn into the, I'm going to leave out that chain into the second chain. That is my 15th chain from this point. I'm going to work a single crochet into this back bump. Yeah, so I'm just going to work a single crochet there, and then I'm basically going to work a single crochet into the next chain at the back bump, and basically work my way back, specifically working into the back bumps. Sorry. So the trick to having your way back easy is just making sure that you don't make your chain so tight, so that at least you can also get into through the back bumps with a lot of ease. I'm now getting into the last one like that, and I've actually finished my first row. So with this project, I'm just going to be, once you finish working like that part, I'll be slip stitching into the next 2 stitches. So that's my first. Into the next I work a slip stitch like that, turn my work. Now I'm going to work my way back through these through this row. So remember we've done 2 slip stitches at this point, so we are going to skip 2 stitches for the slip stitch. So this is the first one and this is the second one. So I'm going to skip those 2, and into the third, which is this, I'm going to work into the back bump, into the back loop. Yeah, so I leave the first, the second, into the third. I'm going to work into the back loop a single crochet like that, and then into the back loop of every other stitch across I'm going to be working single crochets. So remember, we are working into the back loops only. So at the end of this row we should still be having our 15 we'll still be having our 15 stitches. And then guys, into my last stitch, I like working into both the loops because it will make your work, you know, you're ribbing this point here, it's going to be a bit tight and looking neat, and like when you work into one rib, like when you pull, you can clearly see that it's not so like it will look a bit loose, and you wouldn't want your project to look like that. So once I finish working that, I'll chain one, sorry, turn my work, and then into the first stitch. Like I told you, I like working into both the loops like that, and then I'm now going to work my way back into the back loops only and working single crochets only. And like that, as you can see, I have finished working the third row. Yeah, and like I told you before, guys, we are basically, once we finish the row, we're working slip stitches into the next two stitches. So I'll work a slip stitch here like that, work a slip stitch into the next stitch like that, and then turn your work and make your way back. And remember to always keep the first two stitches, because that was the one you used for slip stitching, and into the third, make your way back into the back loop, working single crochets all the way. So guys, this is basically what you're going to repeat until we come to the end of our tutorial. Like, this is what you are going to repeat all through until we finish working around the neck, and then we'll come join our work here and basically work into our sleeve here. So another thing I need to inform you guys, so depending on how wide or how like tiny you want your ribbing to be, the secret is always at the base of your work. Like you see at the point where I was telling you do the slip stitching, if you want your ribbing like a bit tight into the sleeve here, like at this point here, you can always choose to probably work 3 slip stitches or 4 slip stitches depending on your own specifications. So for the neck ribbing, I wouldn't want it so tight for whoever is going to wear this sweater, so I like making it 2. But for this point here, for the hand ribbing, I did 3. Like I was slip stitching 3, and then I make my way back into the, like, up down. When you're at the base, you slip stitch into 3 stitches and make your way back. So depending on how you like it, you can always work it to your own specifications. So guys, continue working on your projects. I'll see you when we are doing our joining here. Guys, I've finished working the rows of my ribbing, and as you can see, it looks pretty nice. So I'm just going to take my pair of scissors, and I'm going to leave the length enough that will enable me to sew this part. So I'll just probably cut at this point here, and then I'm going to pull these through. So I'm now going to make use of my tapestry needle. So I'm just going to insert it there, and I'll be joining this part going upwards. And remember, this part has 15 stitches, and this part also has 15 stitches when we started, so it's going to be very easy. I'm just going to the first stitch in this part. I'll insert my yarn like that, and then I'll come back to this first stitch in this part here and go through in there with my yarn, sorry. Then basically that's it. I'll just go through all the adjacent stitches until I finish connecting these, and I'll then take you through the sleeves part that I told you. And remember guys, to always make your work look neat. Try as much as you can to weave in your ends. I can't tell you that I have a specific way of weaving in my ends, because that is the one thing I still struggle so much with, you know, especially if you're the kind of a person who is paranoid with these uh, projects unraveling. I find myself most of the time weaving in things and trying to stretch and stretch and stretch just to see if it can, you know, unravel or undo itself. So always make sure that you have a good way of weaving in your hands to make sure that your work is intact, and you'll be happy with it obviously when you see the outcome being beautiful. And just like that guys. Look at that. Just look at that. I mean, don't they look similar? Look at my hand ribbing and this. It's only that for this I did 10 chains up, and for this I did 15 chains up. But that's because I wanted my neck ribbing to be a bit of pull neck-ish, though I didn't achieve quite that because you can't fold it. But I also believe that it can cover your neck well and make you, or keep your baby warm. So guys, that's basically it. Pardon me, I'll weave these ends later on. I'm just going to work on our sleeve here. uh, there's nothing complicated about our sleeve. I'm just going to, actually I don't see if there's anything much I'm going to show you. I'm just going to start you off. For this changing of colors, I can say that nothing triggered me into this. It's only that I worked using my yellow yarn, and then at some point I realized that I was running short of it, and I think it started with the entire project anyway. I had made granny squares using the green color, and then when I tried ordering for it, I was told I couldn't find the yarns in the same color. So I figured out I could try and just come up with something that, you know, could make sense to me, and so I opted for the yellow yarn. So, and I also felt that I should, if I've now decided to, you know, mix and match all these colors, I'll have to find a way to just include all the colors everywhere, sorry. So I'm just going to work with this. I'll just count 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. I'll do 15 rows and probably half of it, and then change into green, and then definitely do my ribbing with the yellow color, because I've done the ribbing all over with the yellow one. So for this part of the sleeve, I'm just going to show you how I started. And remember guys, the ribbing for both the waist, the neck, and the sleeves is the same every point. So the part that is going to be complex with the sleeves, you realize that this lower part is part of the granny square, so the stitches are quite evident. But for this part, it's also the part that we were ending the rows of double crochets, and they are not quite definite. But for this part, as you can see, I tried making sure that I have at least two double crochets into each ending. Yeah, so I think that is basically that. Just try and see whichever way will work for you, like I did even at this point here. I start my work from this point. You make your slip knot, and then when I have such endings all over, I try to, you know, crochet my work following with them aligned there, so that instead of coming back to do the weaving in, you can as well multitask and just get done with it as I go. So I'm sorry, so sorry for that. So I'll just insert my hook here. I'll yarn over and pull through, and then I'll just try and tighten that a bit. And then I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, like that. And then guys, I'm now going to work double crochets into every stitch across, and like I told you, I'm just going to make sure I go with these ends all together. So I'll just attach them there, and as I work my as I work my row of double crochet, I make sure that these yarns are just below that to make it easy, so that I don't have to come back later and start weaving in all these ends. So there's nothing much to show really. And one thing I've realized with the working of sleeves, like for this format, you'll really need a slip stitch. Reason being, I would want you to mark every beginning of your row, because I don't, like I realized when I do slip stitches, it gives a certain borderline at the end, at some point of your sweater, and at times it doesn't remain like the last, it doesn't remain like in one point, like one line. At times you find it coming across like this, and it gives your sweater a very bad mark. So I figured out I could as well just use a marker, so that I'll just be doing a continuous row, no slip stitching, like assuming there is no border. But always make sure once you stitch here, you always change your each row, like each time you begin a row, bring a stitch marker to that point, so that when you're ending your row, you know where you began. And another thing guys, I didn't do any decreases. I know my sweater may look like I did decreases at this point. No, that's not the case. So this yarn is a bit thick compared to the green yarn that I used. So the kind of yarn I used, if you're keen on the tutorials of granny squares, that's the kind of yarn I used. So it's somehow thinner than this. That's why it automatically shrunk, like it automatically looked decreased here. And I thank God because of that, because anyway, it made it look easy for me, and it gave it some good ideal look for any other sleeve out there. So guys, that's I think I'm talking too much, but yeah, we are just going to do our double crochets, and we are going to make rounds and rounds of that until you achieve your required length. And I think this is going to be the last part of my tutorial, because there's nothing much to come back to show you. Because I mean, after all these rows, after the changing of color, if it's a must, it's not a must anyway. It all depends with whatever will make you happy. So after the changing of the colors, you work your sleeve, like your ribbing, and the ribbing I've already shown you. So guys, work on your projects, and I guess this is the end of it. If you really liked my tutorial, kindly like, share, and subscribe, and help our sister get to 1,000 subscribers, guys. It's not easy, it's a long journey. I know I'm not consistent enough, but I'm really trying my best to create time and work on this project. So I'm just going to take my time and find my way through these spaces here, and give the appropriate number of crochets, because I'm just trying to be uniform with this, so that the size of my sleeve will be equal on both sides. But otherwise, thank you so much guys, I really appreciate all your support.